My name is Trisha Park. I am the Associate Director of Workshops here at Cleaver Magazine, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our issue 52 contributors reading. Simon Parker is joining us from London, so it's very late there. Thanks, Simon, for being here. Simon is a London-based writer, performer, and teacher. He's an associate artist of Vocal Point Theatre and runs creative writing and reading groups for the homeless and socially excluded at the 240 Project. Recently, his poems have appeared in Mocking Heart Review, Procetrix, The Crank, Cathesis, NW, the Ekphrastic Review, excuse me, and the Pomegranate London. Welcome, Simon.
I'm going to read three pieces. The middle one is the one which was published in Cleaver 52. And firstly, thank you to Cleaver. The first one's called Trouble in Paradise, and it's for the painter Cecily Brown. Willem is peeling the posters off the wall, slicing teeth from smiling lips as he sucks on his lucky strike. He tears another rib from the can and slashes at the canvas, testament to the Dutch demonizing of desire. Eager onlookers have gessoed their hearts. They stand in silence, necks craned to a cosmos which constructs all the answers. They are waiting for the missile of gilded light to smother their longing. She won't abide. She wanders with her own palette beyond the walled garden, beyond naming, taming, shaming. Her strong wrists wield weighted brushes, dripping with life's thick mess, her own mass to mate her. Her soul strikes heavenward, a kick in the teeth for the haloed clouds, soft focus shining on matter. What matters? An apple is an apple is an apple. Black seeds are spat into the artist's eye. She emerges, escaping from the mathematician's rigid gaze where the square root of an angel is a whore, robed in rolls. A housewife with wings is acceptable, but she must be defeathered before she enters the bedroom. Undressed, scapula snapped, crying for a way out. Why wouldn't there be trouble in paradise? She has found it in the fountaining of colour. No either or, angel or whore. Her urgent desire cannot be pinned down. Yearnings are freed far from the tree of knowledge. Winged breath whispers in her flesh. Flesh is, flesh is. We are unwieldy, and grace sings in the splodge, the dab, the stroke, the caress. Willem, stand away from the wall. She is pouring her paint, her pails of colour into Eden's shadow. The glow of your cigarette will be extinguished, the retching cough silenced, in her catching something in the act of being something else. The second piece is Caravaggio's Women, which was in Cleaver 52. Caravaggio's Women. In the queue for Caravaggio, flesh is made marmoreal. A woman in a white dress, our baroque beacon, who should guide us to a wedding feast where gods are drunk and fallen angels are slurring beneath their sticky wings, not a darkened room where a severed head hangs. She stands statuesque, singed blonde hair in unmoving shape, monolithic features paint-primed, strawberry lips drawing the light from distraction. Her shoulders have dismissed fine fabric for polished skin to rise mountainous and proud. Sly glances follow her regal rise on the stone steps to enter the realm of darkened attention, where two of her sisters are framed for hungry gaze. Emancipated eyes glisten in the gloom of art's staging. Ursula, Salome, her, mastering the shadows. And the last piece I'm going to read is called Smoke, and it's a prose poem, and it was written for Mark Rothko. Smoke. Yesterday's work stands behind him. The large canvas leans against the white wall. His eyes try to stay with the sky. He's been standing before this window for an hour, waiting, watching the light creep from the darkness, hoping that the sun's golden resilience might find its way to him. He doesn't feel strong enough to turn. It's been a bad night. It's been a bad couple of weeks. Insomnia's taken hold and won't let go. He sucks hard on the cigarette, opening his throat for the tarred fizz to sharpen his senses, for sensation to become something other than despair. He looks to the glass and steel of Mercury Insurance on 4th Avenue, once solid things. He knows the light is coming, that a sheen will coat the upper stories, echoing to the psalm that it is business as usual, the world will go on. He breathes the last life from the butt in his hand, drops it to the floor, and presses the sole of his shoe to its ember. The canvas cannot wait any longer. 11 foot and 5, blocks of cadmium red, pigeon blue, and a lightly panted swirl of forest green. The colours aren't there. He can name them, he can see them, but they aren't doing anything except ridiculing him. What did you expect? You knew. Somewhere inside you, you've always known. Now you've got to face it. Their derisive sneer forces him back, scrambling for his cigarettes. He must smoke. He must smoke and find his way out. He cannot be here any longer, cannot work here any longer. He grabs the packet from the chair from which he has spent 40 years looking, finding his way into his work, and heads for the door. Once there, something happens. A sensation, something beyond the trembling anxiety that has stalked him for months. It surges into him and his hands seem to stop shaking. Rage. He feels it. Rage. He welcomes it. He wants to turn and take on the painting, not with brush or palette knife or fingers, but with a blade, an axe, a fire. He won't be mocked, ridiculed, emptied. Then, just as quickly as it came, it is gone. The familiar dread returns, and he forages in his pocket for a cigarette. He must smoke.
Preeti is writing from California, where she's also a research leader in human-centered technology. Love that. Her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in the New York Times, 100-word story, Dyad poetry, Had, and Prime Number, among others. She's the author of a chapbook, Chronic, from Bottle Cap Press. Welcome, Preeti.
I'll be reading a nonfiction piece from Cleaver 52 called Birthday Party. Birthday Party. The craziest thing about a C-section is that you don't feel anything from the chest down, but you can move and speak just fine. So you make small talk with the nurses who call you mama, even though you feel like the baby, and your husband drums his scrub-clad feet to all the single ladies blasting through the OR speakers, and you remember how your mother called you Amma when you'd really messed up, like when you tore down your birthday decorations. And you wonder if you're messing up now, all while the spinal block sets in, making you feel like you're being crushed by a marble slab, checking if your toes can wiggle, peering down your nose, watching life unfold as the helpless star of the show, a show so well choreographed that the slightest twinge is numbed before you know you felt it. But it's okay, because there are surgeons and you trust them, because they've done this thousands of times, because they know what's best for you, because they won't hurl scalpels at each other behind the curtain, because if you say your stomach hurts or you can't breathe, they'll believe you. They'll help you because they're professionals. And this is the kind of place where nothing, not superstition, not infighting, not generational trauma, will compromise precision. But just when you let yourself believe that and relax into their belly massage, you feel it. Like two halves of your heart are being pulled apart, like the elastic between is about to snap, but not exactly, because it's a sort of discomfort you have no words for. And they say that's because we're holding your uterus above your body. And each individual word makes sense, but strung together, you can't understand what that explanation could possibly mean, even as it's happening. But before you can ask any questions, they give you more pain medication and more, and even a little bit more, until you forget the knife goes 7 layers deep. Forget they never prepared you for this possibility, even though 1/3 of births end this way. Forget the labor nurse bragging about the low C-section rates, even as the fetal heart rate dropped, even as she kept moving you to all fours and back again. But before you can remember to be upset, the surgeon gasps, "Look at his eyelashes." And you remember, the baby, the baby, the baby, this was about the baby the whole time. And now there's a scream this world has never heard, and blood dripping down the blue drape drown everyone's gloves and arms, and your eyes go wide, but they say, these are good cries. Look how much air he's getting into his lungs, and this blood is necessary, and no, you're not hemorrhaging, and you're fine, and he's fine, and everything's fine. And nothing about this seems fine. Even in your small helplessness, you can sense that, but you can't feel or see much of anything from down there. So you forgive them because they have a much better view from their position towering over you, because they said so, because they let you wear your pajamas all day, because they made you giggle when they put the blue cap over your hair and said birthday hat. And because afterwards they bring you graham crackers and apple juice, and it's the best graham crackers and apple juice you've ever tasted because you feel so safe there with all the beeping monitors and the nurses shuffling in and out, the warm blankets, the warm baby. You feel so safe that you don't realize until long after they're gone that you're moving through the evening feeling nothing, through your life feeling nothing, with no idea when the feeling will return. And only when it does will you realize the trauma you've been put through. But by then, you won't have time to think about all that. You're responsible for a whole life all on your own. The craziest thing about a C-section is that someone was cutting the life out of you. And for a moment, it felt like love.
Marc was born and raised in the Catskills in New York and moved to Tokyo more than 10 years ago to take a teaching position. His work has most recently appeared in Et Review, Narrative Magazine, Silk Road Review, and Friction Online. He has an MFA, from Sarah Lawrence College and is currently an associate professor at Tokyo's Sophia University, where he teaches writing and serves as the faculty editor for the student writing journal Angles. Welcome, Marc.
I'm going to read sort of a stitched together excerpt from my story in Cleaver called Bridges. Rebecca Aronson's bridge was next. It didn't look like much, though several of us in class, the seventh grade boys that also knew her from Hebrew school, had our prints all over it. Fearing we hadn't been of any help, but hoping otherwise, we watched her walk to the front of the class, thinking of the small nods and smiles of appreciation that could soon come our way if any of what we did kept it from withstanding Mr. M's weights. Rebecca had it tough. Her mom grounded to the house with brain sickness. The family's baby borscht Catskill hotel extincted. Our parents said her people were holding on by a thread. We wanted to be of help. It was January, the biblical year had turned over on us, and now we were all on the clock. Haftorah portions to study, tzedakah projects to get going on. Although our parents had ticketed us for various fundraising activities, Rebecca's Bridge was our private pact. It was a little bit of a plank walk to the front of the room, and Rebecca looked nervous, and who could blame her? Moments before we watched with great joy as Lucas Green's bridge was annihilated by the first small lead weight that Mr. M tied to its span. The shop teacher made Mr. M a series of them. Each had a name: rain, wind, hurricane, tornado, earthquake, tsunami. No one had made it to tsunami, and only Jenna Ryan and Josh Gerstein made it as far as earthquake. We expected as much from them. People, settle down, Mr. M hollered as Rebecca approached, his face red and overrun by his beard, burst with an enthusiasm we couldn't imitate. We have to get through this before 11:48. What happens at 11:48? Marshall Lehman demanded to know. You'll see, it's a surprise. Tell us, Edward K. yelled. We don't like surprises. It was a lie. In spite of our institutionalized lack of patience, we loved surprises. It was the waiting for anything we hated. Hold your horses, Mr. M said, repeating one of his beloved expressions. Rebecca was the last in class to go. We planned it that way. We were no better at this than she was, though we made her believe differently. We'll get it started for you, we told her. We'll get it started for you, and you can finish it. At first, she resisted. She didn't trust us, which was fine because we didn't trust ourselves. But growing among her usual seriousness was a deep strain of distraction and declining happiness. Was it her mother, the family hotel? A week into her staring out from her curls and freckles at the popsicle stick, she gave in. Okay, help me start it and I'll finish it. Under any other circumstance, Rebecca was our leader, our advice giver, our bumps and bruises healer. She band-aided our boyhood disasters with vials of pinking mercurochrome and a spiritual putty of empathy and scorn. So we had to help. We had to help with Town Escape, with declining happiness, with whatever we could. And in this moment, it meant with Mr. M and his bridges. At the front of the class, Rebecca handed the bridge to Mr. M. She held herself stiff with anxiety, filled with 12 long years of never having been a south of an A in any class, of never having failed. We can't say we didn't want to call it off the whole thing, some part of us, but it was already in motion. We tried to stall. Tell us what the surprise is. We can't concentrate on anything until you tell us. Mr. M measured our opposition, then dropped his shoulders down in defeat. He walked over to the giant TV that jutted out from the wall. We had never seen it on and assumed it didn't work. The TV had no buttons, only dials. Last chance not to ruin the surprise. He sounded sad. We almost stopped him, but didn't. With the slouch of someone being held at gunpoint, he turned the dial and a flash of light blinked on in the middle of the screen. At first, all we could decode was the smoke building beneath a massive white shape. What is it? We asked. What is it? It's the shuttle, remember? We've been talking all week about the launch, and in precisely 18 minutes it's gonna launch. We were confused. Didn't you say it was supposed to launch yesterday? It got postponed, he said. Didn't you say it was supposed to launch earlier this morning? It got postponed, he repeated. Class is going to be over in 18 minutes, we complained. I'm going to give everyone notes, he insisted. There is no way you can miss this, and you shouldn't want to. Mr. M looked at the clock and did a little bit of math in his head. It was going to be tight. This was the absolute last day for bridge testing. Mr. M wasn't often strict, but when he was, it was always over deadlines. If you chose to be last and time ran out, then you weren't going to get a grade. Rebecca had taken a risk, trusting us.
Robyn is from Birdsboro, Pennsylvania. Her work can be found or is forthcoming at Biscuit Hill, Conduit, Grist, Fugue, Permafrost, and R&R, among other places, and she is the author of the chapbook Natural Healing, a collection of short poems and odd fables on Bottle Cap Press. She holds an MFA from St. Mary's College of California. Welcome, Robyn.
The first poem I'm going to read is called Intelligence, which I wrote it on the other side of the country, but it's a very Pennsylvania poem for me, and I found a few more Pennsylvania poems that I can read after that one because I'm a short poem writer. All right, Intelligence. The developer seized the land during blue winter cold, but Jacob's cows didn't know. They returned. The shepherd placed metal in his teeth. Grass still grew for 1,000 other mouths. When I climb the hill, I see a thatch of dandelions trying to get down. How small and parachutey, like they're forgetting something intentionally. And this poem is about a ghost that goes ghost hunting with people. It's called Shoe Fly Pie. Nobody move. The telepath has located the spirit. It could be anywhere in among this sea of sweaters. We are warning you. How long has it been here, and why? We are running beneath the beams, arms raised, looking, chanting, haunting. What a waste of time. If I could go through walls, what would make you think you could catch me? Wouldn't it be more likely to be sitting in the car, surveying all the changes made over the years, the ubiquity of power steering, and automatic shift? I'm waiting for the world to stop being so material and boring, to put on a t-shirt and go for a lovely walk. Throw out all the old buildings, where I can drive in the grass with my ghost car going bumper to bumper with all the other spirits as the mountain pours down its goats like a white kind of rain falling through my open windows. This is called Boardwalk. Grandmas walk the shores, incoming Toledo's news as the Ferris wheel wobbles. It's dry here, except for ocean calisthenics and permanent blue. Someone says stop talking, a hypocrite's loophole we all walk through. Maybe she meant that skateboard sounds like a heartbeat. Sandpipers huddle in the gloom. And then since my friend John Levy is here, I wanted to read this poem I wrote for him. John's a great poet who his chapbook to Assemble an Absence. In the 72 hours after the election last year, I was like in a stupor. And so I picked this up and it was the only thing that made me like excited about life at all. So I wrote him and we became pen pals. And so anyway, I'll read this and then I'll finish up with two more quick little poems. Note for John, September 15th, 2025. The eye of the piano widens in the deep, so begins its great song, keying the skin of some wild envelope. If I were John Levy, I would wonder what envelope and antelope have in common, why one is fast and one is not, which one is which, and why I can never reach either when I need one. And I will just finish up with this. I'll just do one more poem. Prayer found in a dumpster under a shoe, Wichita, 1959. Let beds fall in love. Let cops wash dishes. Let ice water the gardens of ghosts. Today's only arrest be lemmings mid-flight. Dark stones be urinated by each moon. Butter lay quietly through all your evenings, and captains be only as violent as light.
Louelle is a writer photographer in Winnipeg, Canada. Yay, Canada. Author of the CNF book Glass Bricks at Bay Press 2021. She's the contributing editor rather at New Flash Fiction Review and is included in Best Microfiction 2024. Her writing and photos appear in a variety of journals and anthologies. Welcome, Louelle.
I'll just get right to it. I'm reading three pieces. I'll read the one from Cleaver last. So this first one was published in January in Fictive Dreams Micro Mondays. It's called When I Heard an Ex-Boyfriend Died. I could have thought many things, like how his hair was so thick and his shoulders wide, how his face reddened whenever I told him I was going out with my friends, not him, on a Saturday night, how at a party he'd do things like tell me to get him a beer, trying to make me act more like his friends' girlfriends, and I'd tell him to get it himself. How we fought at our high school grad dance after he noticed I wasn't wearing a bra. So I went home without him. How the last time we slept together, he said I was thinking about my ex, and I told him I wasn't, otherwise I would have enjoyed it. How I saw him at a pub just after his father died and sat beside him, told him I was sorry, and he had tears in his eyes. How a friend ran into him years later and he shook his head, said that though he loved his current girlfriend, then shook his head again before he said, but that, and he said my name. The next one is a CNF piece that was published in Does It Have Pockets at the beginning of the month, and it's called We Always Laughed Through Pain. Dad called to say he'd spread Mom's cremated remains. She wanted them spread in a remote birch grove, but she died in winter, and Dad had agreed to wait until the snow melted. So I asked him how he managed to walk in there. He ignored my question and said, I kept back a third in the closet, but he never explained where the rest actually went. Dad died a few months later, and as we spread him and a third of Mom in the birch grove alongside a deer path, I thought maybe that was as much of her as he felt he could handle for eternity. I pictured them becoming salt lick for the deer that would make their way to the unknown spot where the rest of Mom lay. Maybe Mom would have the last laugh as the deer deposited them together forever. Here's a piece that was in Cleaver. It's a little more surreal than the last two. It's called The Doctor Sweeps In. On his way past the assistant's desk, he claws my folder from the counter, calls my name, hovers silently for a minute, then lands his oversized feathered feet in front of me, his snowy white head of hair level with my chest. Hello, I'm Dr. Snowy Owl. Follow me, he cries, then skip waddles the hall, swoops left and disappears. I find him perched on an office chair in the examination room, those large feet gripping its wheeled legs. His head bobs up and swivels from my records to me, his eyes wide open and round behind his glasses. The doctor peers at me, hoot barks rapid fire questions, and explains what he will do. He slips from the chair, lays one Arctic cold claw on my shoulder, pokes in a needle, and with one quick slice, the rodent-shaped growth is whisked into a plastic bag. He says he will send it to the lab for analysis and get back to me. But as I leave, I catch him eyeing that specimen much too closely.
Barbara Westwood Diehl is senior editor of the Baltimore Review. Her fiction and poetry appear in a variety of journals, including Fractured Lit, South Florida Poetry Journal, Poetry South, Painted Bride Quarterly, Five South, Allium, Split Rock Review, Blink Inc., Midway, Free State Review, Ghost Parachute, Fictive Dream, Gargoyle, Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, Pithead Chapel, and New World Writing Quarterly. Welcome, Barbara.
I'll be reading the micros that appeared in Cleaver. Scavengers. We end our marriage with burnt toast. We end our marriage with cold casserole. We end our marriage with undercooked meat, untouched. Before, we buttered the toast and ate the blackened bread. We kept the casserole in the oven until it bubbled over. We pushed the bits of undercooked meat to the sides of our plates and into the napkins in our laps. We covered up. We made do. We forgave. We sponged up the splatter. We snapped what was left into Tupperware and pushed it to the back of the freezer, the fridge, the shelves. Now we scrape all of it into the compost to rot, to decompose, or drop it into a corner of the yard for coyotes and crows. For the animals we used to be, scavengers, willing to eat what we were served. Closure. Among all the things I don't believe in, closure ranks near the top. His message includes that word closure, and I feel it like the bite of some nocturnal animal, a raccoon clamping jaws on a brown apple core in the trash. But I meet him at a coffee shop so he can get his closure, which is a tearing open, isn't it? I let him paw the emptied garbage can of our marriage, but I keep my wallet closed, keep my identity, keep what I've earned inside. I watch his mouth chew with pointed teeth, watch it yelp, growl, but keep my ears closed. I close the bag of leftovers, not to eat at home, but to open when I'm alone, to feed the nocturnal animals from my tooth-marked core. Woman, wolf. Sometimes she forgets that she has eyes in the back of her head. Eyes in the back of the head can make others feel uncomfortable, especially eyes so disconcertingly gold, wolf eyes, unlike the hazel eyes on the front of her face behind horn-rimmed glasses. So she tries to be considerate. She has had women in checkout lines tap her on the shoulder and say in a huff, "That's rude, you know." Men tend to think she's coming on to them. More than once, she has been slipped a scrap of paper, like what you see, with a name and phone number. And of course, children make faces and stick out their tongues. What you going to do about it, huh? So most of the time, she covers the eyes in the back of her head with her hair. Sometimes a messy bun does the trick. This works until, as she ages, her hair grays and begins to thin. Through the wisp, the eyes in the back of her head appear larger than ever. And how much better to see them with. The woman who slipped lipstick into her bag. The womanizer with the wedding band. The boy who bullies the smaller child. She sees them all. And how much sharper her teeth have become. This wolf woman amidst the bleeding herd in her gray sheep's clothing. Milk. He puts the glass of milk on his kitchen counter and tells me to drink. It's wholesome, he tells me. This is what we feed babies, what we feed kids. But I'm not a kid. I'm a woman in a little black dress he met at a bar in Fells Point, drinking dirty martinis. I'm getting the feeling this is a setup. Like if I open a drawer, I'll find a gingham apron and heart-shaped cookie cutters. In another one, Spanx and Clairol nice and easy. What's in the milk, I wonder? Who is this man? I take a drink, not a real drink, and leave the mustache over my lip, like a man with salt and pepper hair, a man with a Florida tan and a wad of Benjamins in a money clip, a silver fox. Who is the man in this kitchen now?
Terri has been accepted to the Sewanee Writers Conference and into juried workshops with Rebecca Mackay, Laura Vandenberg, and Jill McCorkle. She published in the Denver Quarterly and the Chicago Quarterly Review, among others, and reviews for the Washington Independent Review of Books. Her debut novel, Behold the Bird in Flight, a novel of an abducted queen, tells the story of Isabel d'Angoulême, King John's second wife, a woman mainly erased by history. In 2025, she won the Miami University Press 2025 Novella Prize. Welcome, Terri.
Leaving the stage. When night fell and lights dimmed, the dream of watching my last play gathered in the shadows, and I'd begin to moan. My anguish wasn't stage fright, that was for the actors, but for the ruination of my words, my scenes, my feelings. During rehearsals, I sat alone in the back of the auditorium because I tended to clutch an arm or pinch a knee when a line was abysmally read, or worse, changed. The further you go into the production, the more control you lose. I cursed to myself in the dark, that awful inflection, those godforsaken pauses, the vulgar mumbling, as my play came to life, but not the life I envisioned. As if I'd nurtured a beloved child who now loved soccer, hated opera, or would rather eat at McDonald's. Wayward and willful, no longer mine. I long for auditoriums, but can only drift in my room, windows closed against any movement of air, which is not conducive to my health right now. I am pillowed, surrounded by heat and quiet. I could be sliced by a slight breeze, shattered in a wind. Yes, this is the image. A dried Victorian rose in a bell jar that exists only because nothing touches it. When my friends come to visit, I smell the weather on their clothes and it worries me. Weather doesn't belong in this act of the play. If I'm tired, I turn away their gossip and talk of Dürrenmatt or Schicksal. Then I nap. When I'm alone in the fevered stillness, small events flood my mind. Last week, Wagner's Liebestod leaked through my apartment walls. As the music rose, I floated on sound like a boat on a river, with rose petals in the water and diaphanous light like cellophane. A hard effect to achieve on stage. Of course, it was the potpourri by the bed and the Wagner. The climax approached, my chest opened, and a moment of life stirred sharply in the room before dying away. When I am helped to the bathroom, I inspect my body in the mirror, my shriveled sex, the harp of ribs. Desiccation is not elegant. I fixate on my spine, which runs down my back like a thick whip under skin. It could snap my head off. Shivering, I mask myself under a quilted jacket, Mao blue, soft like a bird's nest lined with feathers. Very different from a nest for dinosaurs, there's scales rattling among the shells, born to run and eat. My body takes on the shape of a velociraptor, starved and fierce, beaten into bone and running like hell. A wave of stage fright rises from the unknown. My actor friends speak of peripheral light and the frightening black before them, a huge mouth to be fed. They feed it. I sit in the back row as my words unspool from the stage and can do nothing but suffer hidden in the last row, non-existent. The actors don't think of me, nor does the audience. Filled with fright, I'm moaning again. Let it be all right. Help me write the final scene. Whenever my plays opened, I imagined audience members as characters in my next play. Stories rose off them like ghosts. In an aisle seat, a man fingered the blouse of his companion. He works in cleaners and loves the dresses, their limp fabric permeated with perfume, powder, the faint smell of a woman's body. He keeps an orange blouse with a strange fragrance for several days, meditating on its scent, rich and alluring. I give him understanding. A woman planned a murder while wearing that blouse. At intermission, a lanky brunette walks up the aisle and stretches her arms. She will howl at the moon after an evening of Mozart, then crawl into bed with her sleeping husband. Her toes are cold and ugly with a bruised nail, black streaked with blue. Out of the blue, a touch of cold on my spine, a little brittle shattering. Frozen slices of skin peel away. Nurse says, "Sir, it is too hot in this room," and I jolt awake. My friends flanked the bed, waiting with the shadow people, a crowd of great beauty. Beautiful crowds appeared in all of my plays. Others wait in the wings. The characters from The Cleaners has not yet appeared on stage, nor the truck driver who blasts Bach as he wrestles his semi across Colorado mountains. Unfinished lives, unstarted lives, mine to create. Graciela has lived with me for 8 months. I know the run in her stocking under her dress and how she aches to wail. I want them to live. They deserve a chance. I could give them life. Oh, yes, I could. If I had time, I could create a whole world of husbands and murderers and parties and goddamn fucking truckers with destiny. Son of a bitch, just give me time.
Elizabeth is a creative writing program coordinator at Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York, where she has also been teaching trauma writing workshops at the Breast Cancer Coalition since 2007. The author of 2 chapbooks, Wild Things from Main Street Rag 2021 and Imago Dei, winner of the Rattle Chapbook Poetry Prize in 2022, her writing also appears in The Atlantic, McSweeney's, Room, Descant, Women's Studies Quarterly, and Clockhouse, among others. Twice awarded SUNY Chancellor's Awards, she was selected by New York State Poet Laureate Patricia Spears Jones to lead 2 community poetry projects in 2025. Welcome, Elizabeth.
When I was a little girl, I used to play a lot of fortune-telling games, plucking petals and shaking magic 8 balls and folding cootie catchers to predict what my life in the future was going to be like. And one of the games that I played, you might have played this too, was a game called MASH. So MASH is an acronym, M-A-S-H. M is mansion, A is apartment, S is shack, H is house. And this would always appear at the top. You draw it on a piece of paper and you'd always have that at the top. And then the other categories could be anything: future pets, future partner, future city you were going to live in, what kind of car, what kind of job you were going to have. And you would play it with somebody else and you would slowly eliminate your options. So you'd wind up with your future at the end after you'd crossed everything else out. This is a cento. So the way that I decided to do it was by choosing lines from famous poems, poets that I love. You may recognize some of these. So every line in my poem is not written by me, but by someone else. And then I just mix it all together. So we're going to play it with my friend Angelique Stevens, who has joined us. We've been writing together for a long time. She's a Cleaver contributor. And so Angelique is going to jump on here. The way that you play this is you always play with 2 people. And so what I'm going to tell Angelique to do is to draw until I tell Angelique to stop. So ready, set, draw your spiral. Okay, stop. Now you count the spaces in your spiral. How many spaces do you have?
3.
Before I start eliminating things, I'm just going to read off the first part here. So M is the mansion of the sky, whose door is the morning mist and whose windows are the songs and the silences of night. A is an apartment, the hall bulb burned out, the landlord of Greek extraction and possibly a fatalist. S is the whole shack, shaking, drenched in mild sauce, sweet spirit, baptized. H is the burned house eating breakfast. You understand there is no house, there is no breakfast. And the categories that Angelique is going to get to choose, well, I'm choosing for Angelique now, is future spouse, partner, sorry, Angelique, future children, future pet, and future job. All right, so she picked 3. So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to cross off. Angelique, you're not going to live in a shack when you grow up. All right, guess what? You are also not going to be partnered with an onion that will blind you with tears like a lover. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, you're not going to have a dog. I know you love dogs. 1, 2, 3. You're also not going to have any horses. I keep scrolling down. 1, 2, 3. You will not have a baby who would have been born into winter in the year of the disconnected guys. And no car. 1, 2, 3. Oh, lucky you. You will not be a poet with enough paper to make mistakes and go on. 1, 2, and you go back up to the top. Oh, I'm sorry. You won't live in a mansion either. And then 1, 2, 3. You also will not get what God felt when he pressed together the first beloved, everything. So I'm not going to keep going through because it takes a while, but I will show you what it looks like when it's done. And then if you all would like, you can go to the Cleaver page and play it yourself. So let me share the page So, Angelique, when you grow up, you will have an apartment, the hall bulb burned out, the landlord of Greek extraction, and possibly a fatalist. You will have a love which stores the WD-40 and knows when to use it, which remembers to plant bulbs, which upholds the permanently rickety, elaborate structures of living. I actually know Angelique's partner, and I think that fits pretty well. You will have a fish weary of analysis, the small, predictable truths. You will be a mother of other kingdoms, rock every other species to sleep, the green and howl and pulse and bloom. And for a future job, you will be a bug wrangler, jailed for cruelty to insects.
Sydney is a Pulitzer finalist in poetry and founded the New England Review, was Vermont's poet laureate, and received his state's highest artistic distinction, the Governor's Award for Excellence in the Arts. Sydney has published 2 novels, most recently Now Look, 8 volumes of personal essays, most recently Such Dancing as We Can, and 16 poetry collections, most recently What Shines. He lives in Vermont. Welcome, Sydney.
I was pleased to have 2 very short pieces selected, which I regarded as essays, although one has apparently been selected for a fiction anthology. That's not up to me. I'll take it, but it confused me a little bit when I heard that. It's called Nostalgia, and it begins in a very peculiar way. Did you ever pick beans with a heart on? This was not a question I'd ever dreamt of hearing. Just arrived in that North Country hamlet in Carless. I'd been hitchhiking to a new job some miles south. But I'd learned this was Dub, gravedigger, lawnmower, truck farmer. It was the late 1960s, and he'd hired a crew from a hippie commune to help him reap those beans. This one little gal, he explained why she took off her shirt as soon as we started. So the perfectly offbeat question he'd asked made a sort of sense, however crass. No old-timers like Dub remain in his town. The newcomers had frosted the cake in that little village 20 miles south of me. They had started to when I fled it 4 decades ago. I don't know a soul there now. I fight not to sentimentalize the families, some of them there for literal centuries, who've been misplaced. Like any of us, they had their defects of character. And yet, judge Dub and his outrageous question as however you will. I dream of beholding his beat-up old boat of a Chrysler veer to the shoulder so I can take a seat up front again. I'd like to smell him, the dung, the dirt, the pipe. I'll never explain such a longing, maybe not even to myself, a man you could now call archaic too. Just one thing left to fear, though not very deeply. The other one is called Falling Shy. My boyhood house is not the home of my heart. That wouldn't surprise you if you knew some things I know, though I won't examine any of them and I won't pity myself. Everywhere I've gone, I've come on people who endured much more in childhood than I did for my own petty woes. Besides, my sadness, if in fact that's what I should call it, connects obliquely at most to pain or neglect. Instead, the feeling comes more precisely when I remember my bachelor uncle's farm, which is the store of cherished particulars. I have plenty of those, but looking back, I yearn to thrust them into some higher realm or deeper. I pretend that this would make me whole, whiff of the barn all year, long shadows of corn stalks at end of summer, spring pastures pocked by woodchucks, airborne crystals, frost at dawn, a daytime owl high in the loft in autumn, the landscape's inclinations, each as familiar to me as any playmate. All those all right, but what did they validate? I could still point out which pondside pine in winter refracts the moonrise, and through which mullioned window to behold that show, or the suns at dawn, exploding onto days in July that somehow boded adventure, to which I could still be roused by rasping crows. Even now, I'm transported by unpredictable cues. The savor of twisty apples from half-wild trees, for instance. A similar taste today still seems a harbinger of some astonishing revelation. And then, head spinning, I tremble, weak in the knees. There. You can see how cliche insults my search for signification.
Claudia's Flash appears in Cleaver, Split Lip, Smoke Long Quarterly, Craft, Flash Frog, Tramp Set, The Forge, and elsewhere. She won the 2024 New Flash Fiction Prize from New Flash Fiction Review, the Genre Flash Fiction Prize from Uncharted Magazine, and the 2023 Smoke Long Workshop Prize. She has stories in Best Small Fictions 2024 and 25 and Best Microfiction from 2025. She lives in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome, Claudia.
I'm going to read my story that was in Cleaver, and then I'm going to follow it with a really short 6-sentence micro. Ghost roofers. Their bid is high, but I sign. I've never worked with a ghost company before, and Ghost Roofers offers a special product. On scalding days, their roofs spray cool mist through ceilings and walls. Supposedly, this mist hovers over floors and furniture, touching only skin. Yelp reviewers rave about how refreshing it is. A handful say it's creepy. My husband would have said something like that. He loved writing negative Yelp reviews, although he was always accurate in his criticism. Me, I yearn for my skin to be touched by cool mist that comes from roofer ghosts. The foreman for my new roof project is beautiful. Although his face appears wispy, I can make out eyes and a mouth that are intense but kind. He and his crew are not white like movie ghosts. They're a beautiful shade of light blue, blending to rainbow. Their faces, arms, and chests are somewhat visible, but then they begin to fog and blur, red to orange to yellow to green, blue, cobalt, violet. They move like pastel watercolors. I love to watch them work. Their tools, prism, the hammer, blue, indigo, plum, the nail gun, a fiery scarlet, amber, rust. The ladder is my favorite, a plain gray metal extension ladder. But when one of the ghosts steps on it, all the steps transform, each one shimmering a different color. Like my husband's Aloha shirts. We rarely took vacations. He was wedded to his work as an anesthesiologist. But I talked him into a week on Kauai for our 20th. My husband, whose most adventurous clothing was LL Bean's plaid flannel shirts. My husband bought 3 Aloha shirts in wild tropical colors and prints. And that pineapple print, he bought me a pair of matching wide-legged pants. Our trip was heaven until a rogue wave swept him off a rock. After 3 weeks, my new roof is nearly complete. What will I do without the ghost roofer's steps above me? One ghost moves like the sound of rain, mostly gentle drops with occasional downpours. Another is static. The foreman's movements are all violin, the strong rhythm of portato, the slow, smooth movement of legato, spiccato when he moves quickly across the roof. My husband kept a violin in his hospital locker. It soothed him to play when things were rough. Once he played for a terribly anxious boy about to go under for a high-risk operation. He was so excited to tell me how it calmed the boy. I wish I could remember the details, especially what he played. I swear, when the ghost foreman is on my roof, I hear Bach, Izii, Barrio. His last day on the job, I take the foreman aside. I tell him I want to ask about my husband. He nods. I can't control how many questions I have, how quickly they form. Have they met? Is my husband happy? Does he get to play the violin? Can the foreman deliver a message to him from me? After a moment, he answers intensely, kindly. Would you like me to lie? He asks. Yes, please, I say. This last one is called Player. Next to the freeway encampment, a piano tilts on the dirt, like an unbalanced stilt walker. Chipped keys, case body cracked, chunks of wood missing, and still the boy plays, his fingers knitting a melody not heard above the traffic, the notes steeped in ache. The swollen traffic comes and goes, the heart roosts where it can. Soon the tune demands, launching notes with such heft that a block away a woman pauses from sorting clothes beside her makeshift tent, blue tarps fluttering in the wind, and something loosens inside her, something bright, defined, like the shiny penny her father gave her as they stood before a fountain. Toss it, he told her. Make a wish.
Jim has been published or has poems forthcoming in Company, New Mexico Poets After 1970, Liminality, Rata Palix, Passenger's Journal, The City Key, Does It Have Pockets, Neologism Poetry Journal, Eclectica, J Journal, and the Moonstone Art Center Ekphrastic Poetry Anthology. He co-edited and designed St. Elizabeth Street Magazine and HineniMagazine.com. He teaches programming and logic in New York. Thank you, Jim. Welcome.
This poem's called "In What City Did Your Parents Meet?" The Oyster Bar closed a while in the pandemic. Before trips to Beacon, I went there with my son, whispered corner to corner in the hallway outside. My dad followed mom from out west because he said he had nothing better to do. I thought the fish overpriced and greasy. What was the name of your oldest cousin? His sister was older, but he was older than me. It never felt like 3.5 years. We were two boys for all that I knew. We chased lizards and gamed on hex maps, piled dumb jokes on each other's, shot bottle rockets. The other thing we had no name for. Much older, I've named it. He never did, but Brian told me recently he never stopped playing in the hot tub, even after finding God. What was your first car? Weeks of hours in its great lush back seat by my brother, and no one expected kids to belt then, so I lounged from Farmington to Flagstaff through Nevada and out to San Diego with Waylon, Emmy Lou, Johnny Merle, and Chris teaching life without parole and low-down freedom. Once near Big Sur, we pulled over for a pee, and the soda and candy we'd spilled brought fire ants in the back. 5 or 6 stings on our bare legs before we said anything. It became mine much later after Dad got the Camaro. The 454 V8 made me feel bigger than it was right or safe to. What was the name of your 3rd grade teacher? Maybe it was the model glue I used for hours in my desk cubby, but I walked in a dream then. Walked out of the bathroom once and realized I'd gone in the sink. I stared over worksheets through math period, fantasies and stories shielding me. Somehow I learned long multiplication anyway. One day I wouldn't go to music. She talked to me 20 minutes. What was the name of your first pet? I remember puppies tumbling down the steps in the sunken living room. Later, after the home invasion, Dad had a shepherd trained as a guard dog, but he bit my cousin. They said he went to a nice farm. What was the first concert you went to? Brian's 69 Bronco was a yellow cracker box. We fit 9 or 10 in back to get to the Rodeo Coliseum. The pit under the stage was a temporary autonomous zone. I didn't know how to inhale at 13, but I burned a Jack Chick comic and bought a thin half-sleeve t-shirt with the devil baby. Some idiots thought they could beat up the Sikh security guards and got carried out unconscious. Much later in that same truck, Brian pulled over to look at the river on a bad trip. Wait, he kept saying, until we saw someone about to steal the truck, still running with the key still in. I thought I made that up, but Justin confirmed. My first time with Brian wasn't that night, but another trip, and I was technically an adult by then. I said later, I was ashamed to be a virgin. He said, what the fuck are you talking about?
Vivienne is also our emerging artist for this past year. Vivienne is a writer, woman, naysayer, and daydreamer. She received a BA in English from Harvard University and an MA in journalism from NYU. She's currently based in New York City. Welcome, Vivienne.
I'm just going to read the first half of false cognates of a real illness. My French accent was much better in college than it is now. Actuel does not equal actual. En faisant confiance à ce qu'on pense qu'on sait à première vue, on acquiert une sensation de compréhension actuelle. Translation. By trusting what we think we know at first glance, we gain a feeling of current understanding. In my high school French classes, kids tried to translate words by adding an A sound to the end of English terms. Sometimes it worked. To pay is payer, organized is organisé, and combined is combiné. So they thought it was a smart idea to fumble through quizzes by concocting imaginary phrases like j'ai forgoté à studier. But it was not a smart idea, and it was obvious that they forgot to study. Oublié à étudier. A naive classmate would embarrass himself every year by saying he was excité for the field trip. Excité and excited are false cognates, words in different languages that look and sound similar but have different meanings. La chair is flesh, le crayon is a pencil, and le pain is bread. Excité means sexually aroused. The naive student probably trusted his confidence in the word excité until learning its true meaning. Shocked, disappointed, and betrayed, he realized that he can't trust a false cognate. But soon he'll accept, adjust, and move forward accordingly. Éventuellement does not equal eventually. Je vais éventuellement passer un été en France. Translation. I will possibly spend a summer in France. By college, I was working toward rosy dreams of studying abroad in France, and I was a student who never straggled. I could type A papers and annotate 100-page readings. I enjoyed animated classroom discussions and dining hall discussions even more. I went to classes early, walking briskly while wearing neat outfits with matching earrings that made people say, "She's so put together." Driven, in control, and in constant motion, I thrived in a fast-paced college life. I did well in school, got into a study abroad program, and planned to spend 2 months in Avignon, France. Attendre does not equal attend. J'attends toujours. Translation, I'm always waiting. Immediately after accepting study abroad admission, my life decelerated. Small items slipped from my grasp. Pencils, shoelaces, earrings, and I struggled to move my fingers to type sentences. I couldn't read through my new double vision. I could barely look classmates in the eye, shape my face into a smile, or move my lips to speak clearly. I stopped attending meals, unable to walk. My stride would slow to an insectile pace until my legs wouldn't move at all, as if they couldn't hear my brain telling them to take a step. My body became a worn-down computer, buffering more than functioning. One night, I collapsed on the steps three flights below my dorm. I squinted at my phone through failing eyes and messaged a group chat with failing fingers. "If you help me with the stairs, I will bring you coffee tomorrow." I realized I couldn't get anyone coffee in my barely functional body. "If you help me with the stairs, I will Venmo you coffee tomorrow," I edited. While waiting for a response, I watched my neighbors rush down the hallway. I observed their shoes, their attitudes, their smiles, and their fatigue. People watching is popular at Parisian cafes, where friends sit side by side at tables facing the street. But I sat in solitude, quietly and patiently like a bird watcher, while other students scurried in the wild. Prétendre does not equal pretend. Je peux facilement prétendre que je vais bien. Translation, I can easily claim that I'm doing well. Despite admitting my problem, I tried to pretend I was able-bodied. I enjoyed daily breakfast with my friend, chatting and romanticizing our upcoming summers in Italy and France, respectively. But one afternoon, I spoke to the same friend with slurred speech, my consonants waning like a melting candle. She watched me with a pitying frown instead of her usual buoyant smile. I asked if I was looking at her, and she told me I was glazing slightly above and to the left. I forced a laugh through lips with static corners. That's so funny, I said. Don't worry, I'm doing totally fine. My baby-like diction was barely comprehensible. I stopped attempting eye contact. I started to cry. Déception does not equal deception. Je vais face à la déception à cause de mon corps. Translation: I'm facing disappointment because of my body. Defeated, I went to a hospital. The doctor said that nothing was wrong. My body was playing tricks on me, or maybe I was playing tricks on him. After I called my mom in tears, she took me to a bigger hospital. The neurologists offered two possibilities: myasthenia gravis, considered unlikely, and functional neurological disorder, FND, the expected diagnosis. FND is unspecified self-deception, when a person fools their body into physical dysfunction. While this potential diagnosis felt insulting, it gave me hope. FND is a short-term psychological condition easily resolved with therapy. A week later, my blood tested positive for AChR antibodies, indicative of myasthenia gravis, a rare chronic neuromuscular autoimmune disease. Acetylcholine receptor antibodies were blocking my brain from communicating with my muscles. Where I thought I was functioning, I was failing. My body had become a false cognate. My doctors told me not to look forward to a summer in France.
That is our reading, everybody. Thank you so much for your words and your time and for trusting Cleaver with your precious art. We need all of your work and all of our stories now more than ever. So thank you for everything. Keep in touch with Cleaver. Keep an eye out for our upcoming events and our quarterly issues, and submit your work. Thank you so much, everyone. Be safe and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye.